Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're tuning in. This is another episode of Backyard Buckets brought to you by Backyard Sports. Got the whole crew this week after a couple weeks where I had some family and adult commitments, but I appreciate both of you holding down the fort. It's good to be back with you guys. A couple great episodes back to back. Bentley, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I have no adult responsibilities in my life, so I'm riding high, dude.
That's why you can be the wing connoisseur. That magic city. Ryan, how you doing, man?
Good. I was gonna make a joke about adult responsibilities, but I won't, as Bentley covered that. I'm doing well. Happy holidays to everyone that's
Yes.
listening.
Very much so. Happy holidays. Speaking of the holidays, we had a good old fashioned butt whooping courtesy of Luka Doncic on Christmas Day. He went for like a buck 20 and 35 assists, and no, he had 50 and 15 against the Phoenix Suns, and he always seems to just beat up on the Suns. So I want to ask you guys the question: where does this performance rank in terms of all-time performances on Christmas Day? Because Christmas Day is the NBA's thing until the NFL gets to steal it like once every 3 years or something like that when they have NFL games on it. And then they decide to shift and put 3 NFL games on a Monday because they're the NFL and they just like to, I don't know, hang brain on other leagues, I guess. But NBA traditionally has Christmas Day, though, and they usually try to put together really good matchups, superstars against superstars, championship contenders against championship contenders, defending champions against the team they played in the finals. Sometimes we'll get finals rematches on Christmas Day. We got Mavs, Suns, two teams that I think at the beginning of the season everybody expected to be contenders in the West. However, if you ask Kendrick Perkins, Luka Doncic always takes the belt to the Phoenix Suns. So I go back to my question. I'll start with you, Bentley. What are your thoughts here on Luka's performance and where it ranks on Christmas Day?
Yeah, so because his stat line is important, I'll read it out in its totality, right? He finished at a plus 16 in the box score plus minus. He had 50 points,
Yeah.
3 blocks, 4 steals, 15 assists, and 6 rebounds. That individual stat line has actually never occurred in the NBA ever. So it probably has to be the best Christmas performance ever, right? If we have a box score origami.
You're making history.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But in recent history, the last 10 years, there are not any specific games that jump directly out at me in of my mind files, of which they are not as deep as Ryan's, so maybe he can think of one. But I would have had to say for my money that it's the most impressive Christmas game that I at least can recall. So I'm going to go ahead and say it was the best one. I agree with Kendrick Perkins that Luka he just always brings it against Phoenix. We've seen it in the playoffs, the very famous Game 7 where they won by like 40 against Phoenix. There's a few teams in the West, specifically the Clippers and the Suns, that Luka Doncic just sort of seems to own, and he really, really gets up for those games. I don't exactly know what the premise of that is or why it happens that way, but Luka just loves playing against those teams, and he always seems to ball out and put his entire skill set on display. And it was out in full force on Christmas night. So, yeah, I think it was certainly one of, if not the best Christmas performances that I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for laying out the whole stat line because it is important to talk about, like, the totality of it. I made the joke about the, buck 20 and 30 times, but let's not glaze over the fact that he filled the entire stat sheet in a way that's never been done before, for sure. Yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts here? Is this the best ever?
I think it's the best of the 21st century, which is is an accomplishment, right? We're almost a quarter of the way through. Yeah. The only one I would argue is comparable is Jokic from last year. I believe his line was 41, 15, and 15. That's a pretty good game. But that was an overtime, so, gets a couple extra points and stuff from there. The real competition, I think, is when you include all of NBA history, and I think there's 2 games that are comparable. One that was brought up a bunch during the Knicks game because Bernard King was at the Knicks game, and he had a 60-point Christmas Day game, which is the most ever. Luka has the most since 2000, 50 points. He had way more assists than Bernard King. Bernard King also, the Knicks lost that game. So I think you have to give him like slightly less for that. So I'm going to say Luka's was slightly better than him. And then the other one to compare it to is Wilt Chamberlain's game in 1961, which was 59 points, 36 rebounds, which is a pretty good game.
I would have only been slightly exaggerating for Wilt.
Yeah, that was like his like season average around that year. I think he averaged 50 a game that year, so it was around his average. It was pretty wild, but they lost that game as well. So again, Luka, most impressive stats to me, and won the game. You have to give him a lot for that. What I will say is I watched a Thinking Basketball video about the game. Thinking Basketball is a really good YouTube channel if no one's ever seen it. And they broke the game down, and what he talked about was, the masterful use of the pick and roll and how Derek Lively's really opened that up. And I think we've all talked about that on this show multiple times about how much we like Derek Lively's ability.
Where do you go to college?
Yeah, I don't know. Never heard of him. A small school.
Trinity College.
The thing I found interesting about that video, though, is he was talking about not just the assists, but the gravity that Luka had in that game. And there's a play where he shoots a three, he misses the three, ends up cutting across the key and gets the ball back on the wing. And he was on fire offensively scoring the ball. So 3 Phoenix defenders like follow him all the way across the floor, right? And he shoots that ball with 3 guys on him, which, kind of a Kobe-esque moment there. And he front rims it. But because there's 3 guys on the perimeter, it's like the easiest offensive rebound and putback ever. So the guy actually gave him, I think, like 6 extra points contributed based off just gravity alone and how much he was pulling the defense in different spots. And he said he contributed to his estimation, I believe, 94 points. Ooh. With his points, assists, and then like the 6 or so points for his gravity, basically, which is insane in the modern NBA. To do something like that. So I'm going to put him number 1 overall, probably some recency bias. And I'm like the guy who doesn't like to put new stuff first overall. So
right. For you to do
it. Yeah, I think I have to. I love Bernard King. I think an underrated historical player. We've talked about him a few times on here as an offensive player. You can't lose the game and have a comparable stat line and say it's better. So that's just my opinion on that. And if he wins, you can make an argument, but did not win the game. So,
if I could toss in one contender that Ryan did not mention, as I did some on the spot Googling, very extensive research. Dwayne Wade in 2016 put up 40 and 11 and had 4 steals. They won the game, but the more impressive stat line from that game was that he was the primary defender on Kobe Bryant, and Kobe scored 16 in that game. So, I mean, Dwayne Wade, known as one of the best defensive guards, best shot blocking guards in his career. But he locked out Kobe Bryant on Christmas Day, held him to 16. I think that probably deserves an honorable mention.
Yeah, it's a classic Kobe game there, 16 points.
Yeah, right.
The only other shout out I'll give that I didn't mention, but I know Bentley will like this, is Tracy McGrady. Yeah. Amazing Christmas game player. I think he averaged 43 points per game in Christmas games in his career. I think it's like 4 or 5 games, so it's not like he only played one. He had I think a 40-something, 11-8 game against LeBron in 2003, which was LeBron's first Christmas game. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good game, especially for that era where 40 was the 50 of today.
Yeah.
Because they didn't score like that.
Yeah.
I think he led the league in scoring that year. As the year, right?
32-point year.
Yeah, I believe so. Is either that or the year before. But yeah, he loves Christmas for some reason, and I wish that guy did not injure himself as much as he did in his career, because I would have a championship to celebrate, I'm pretty sure, and also the NBA would be a lot better for it.
Yeah, there just a couple more. So when you guys brought this up earlier, I kind of had to do myself some kind of research on like what are some of the biggest ones, because obviously recency. A lot of the ones you guys have mentioned. Ryan, you mentioned some of the older ones that came up. Oscar Robertson had a huge triple-double on Christmas Day, but in a losing effort. Of course, we're gonna have to count the points there, but he had 40 points, 17 assists, and 12 dimes, or 17 dimes, 12 rebounds. Pretty big triple-double on Christmas Day there. But Shaq, in a bit of a revenge or at least clash game against Kobe, he had 24 and 11, but Kobe responded with 42, 8 boards and 6 assists. So that was a pretty big game that they went back and forth quite a bit. Shaq was obviously playing second fiddle to Dwayne Wade on that Miami Heat team. So, yeah, a lot of really good performances on Christmas Day. I think I agree with both of you that looking at the totality of the stat line, as Bentley, so astutely pointed out and spoke to, but also Ryan balancing that out with, winning the game on Christmas Day, because that's, you play to win the game, as Herm Edwards let us know very explicitly.
Not explicitly. Herm Edwards doesn't curse.
Well, that's true. He didn't say explicit words. He was very direct about play to win the game. Hello. So yeah, I agree. I think Luka's performance is probably atop the pyramid for me. Speaking of the Suns, let's stay in that vein. Transition to an old head who was a very vocal player before he joined the league, while he played in the league, and has continued to be vocal since he left the league, and Brandon Jennings. For those of you that don't remember, he was the high school guy that he was the first one to kind of circumvent the collegiate system of play and go in when the NBA did away with the straight out of high school stuff, et cetera, et cetera. He has recently stated that Kevin Durant should leave Phoenix because he's basically being wasted there. He deserves better. I don't think any of us are going to disagree in terms of the level of talent that Kevin Durant is and how much success we think he should be having on any given NBA franchise. But I do kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on, do you agree with Brandon Jennings? If you agree with Brandon Jennings, where would Kevin Durant go? And would he really garner the kind of asking price that the Suns would probably want to get back for Kevin Durant at this point of his career? Ryan, I want to go your way first because you pointed out some interesting pieces before we came on here. So what are your thoughts here on this KD situation?
Well, first I want to just address specifically what Brandon Jennings said, which I hadn't actually read until just now, and I want to say it's a very weird statement. He said they're cursed.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns are cursed, which I kind of get why he says that, right? Like there is some like weird history with the Suns, but they're not like the most cursed franchise. Like they've actually been a pretty successful like without a championship, but like out of the teams without a championship, they're one of the most successful, I would say. I've had a lot of great players and have been very competitive. They had like some bad periods in the early Devin Booker years, but like that's the only reason they got those guys is because they were bad. So, I just find that weird. I think that's I don't think that's a great thing to say to like any fan base. Like it's just kind of messed up in my opinion, because I think that people attach the fan base to themselves, like diehards who are like, we're not cursed, or they're the opposite and they're like the most pessimistic fans and they're like, we are cursed.
We're so cursed.
We need to sacrifice something to win it. It's like, I do feel bad because most of their teams aren't very good in that city right now, but the fact that he doesn't deserve that phrasing is really weird to me too, because what does he deserve? Like, what does a player deserve at all ever, right? Like, if anything, Kevin Durant deserves whatever the Suns want to do to him. They have no like allegiance to him, like historically, right? He doesn't have allegiance to them historically. He has allegiance to no one, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it comes with the consequence of the team doesn't view you as like a franchise cornerstone, right? It's like, oh, he's been here since he was 25, and this is a decade of play.
Right.
There's no goodwill necessarily there. So I don't really get that comment. If it was Dwayne Wade leaving the Heat, yeah, like that was a big deal because it's like, oh, this is the franchise superstar, but like we can't keep him here anymore, kind of thing. Dwayne Wade probably played longer in Miami than he should have because of all the goodwill, right? Like Durant's not going to get that, I don't think, wherever he ends up going.
Right.
So I find that weird. The other thing I'll say is the team is not that bad. Like they're 500, like they're fine with all the injuries. Like that's a pretty good spot. I think Devin Booker's played really well. I had Devin Booker, if he had played enough games, in my top 10 in the MVP conversation. I thought he had having a better year than Durant was having. That's kind of evening out now that they're like playing together a little more. But Bradley Beal's supposed to be coming back pretty soon. I think some of their bench pieces are really figuring out. This was a good time for them because all the guys that are on the fringe got to play a lot, and they really got to find out who are the people that need the minutes, right? Is Drew Eubanks an NBA contributor to the Suns? Is it all these other players that they have, the Metus of the world and those types of guys, right? Are those guys going to contribute when they're fully healthy? I think it's good for them. So I just think this is like overreaction to a 30-game sample size. Also, Terrence Ross apparently said the Suns were good before Durant got there. Yeah, they were. Everyone said that. The Nets are still good with the guys they got. I don't think anyone disagreed. I think they became more playoff viable with Durant, and that was really what that was about. So I'm addressing all of the comments because I think all of them are a little silly. I think we should just kind of like let the chips ride because this is the bed that he's made by forcing his way out and by wanting to consolidate with stars. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing that move. I'm just saying there are consequences to those moves from a roster building perspective that we all agree on.
Yep.
So yeah, that's all I really have to say.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it came through on the broadcast or not, but I knocked on wood for Suns fans after you said the Bradley Beal comment that he should be coming back. Just you're not cursed, Suns fans. You're not cursed.
No, that's the Wizards' curse.
Yeah, that's fair. He took it with him.
He's been showering every night to get it off.
Bentley, what are your thoughts, man?
Maybe Bradley Beal should go to like a 3-day darkness retreat.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, there you go.
So apparently, that's the secret to recovering from injuries quickly. So
Dr. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, right. MD, baby. Gary, you asked if I think or if we think that Kevin Durant should leave the Suns. The short answer to that question is absolutely. Like, he absolutely should leave the Suns. He should go play in Denver. I don't know what go play in Denver, go play in Philly, go play in Boston.
Who says no?
Yeah, I mean that's what he should do.
Yeah.
He cannot do that, but that's what he should do. Ryan, unfortunately, you kind of said it perfectly. He has no loyalty, and he has never really had loyalty. I think that he probably would have liked to stay in Oklahoma City, but they made it clear that they were choosing Russell Westbrook over James Harden, and I think that was the incorrect decision, and I think that Kevin Durant knew that. Not that Westbrook was not a phenomenal player in his prime, right? Obviously he was. He won an MVP, the triple-doubles, all that stuff. But I think that Kevin Durant knew, because he was there every single day and played with them, that they probably should have stuck with Harden rather than Westbrook. And if that were the case, then maybe Kevin Durant would have stayed in Oklahoma City, right? He was drafted to Seattle, not a significantly large NBA market. Stay with Oklahoma City. Obviously, everybody kind of thinks of him as being a child of Oklahoma City. I think they had the opportunity to make him the franchise player if they had made the correct roster decisions around him. Everything that Kevin Durant has done since leaving Golden State looks similar to what he did in choosing Golden State, right? He almost is attempting to recreate the semblance of a lot of superstars around him, and then you just have fringe guys. But he did it incorrectly, right? He hitches wagon to Kyrie Irving, who for the last 25 years has been the worst superstar that you can ever choose to go into business with. Not necessarily a knock on him as a basketball player, but we all know the long history of him off the
Everything
court.
else that comes along with Kyrie
Exactly.
Irving.
And unfortunately, that affects play on the court, right? Like that's just how it is. He forced his way out of Brooklyn and basically was like, "I'm only going to Phoenix. That's my option. Is I'm going to Phoenix." Cool, got it. Then he got to Phoenix and was like, "Hey, I want Bradley Beal." I think the three of us were like, "Well, they probably would have been pretty good without Bradley Beal if you just keep DeAndre Ayton." Now, is Ayton the third best player on a championship team? I don't know. Is he the third best player on a championship team that has Kevin Durant and Devin Booker? Probably. You know, I mean, those two guys, Ryan just talked about Devin Booker being the top 10 of his personal MVP voting. I get that. Devin Booker's phenomenal. He's a killer. He has all of the skills. He played point guard early in his career, so he's an above average distributor. He has good court vision. He plays really hard on defense when he chooses to, which is most of the time. And again, y'all were talking about how Kevin Durant's skills, his defensive skills, have diminished just due to old age and mileage on his body, right? And that's not something that you can knock a guy for. That's just the reality of the situation. So it's really the bed that he has made is he's now kind of reaping the consequences of that, right? The actions that he has chosen to take in trying to get the GM and the coach fired in Brooklyn. Well, that didn't happen, so I'm going to force my way out of here. So he forced his way out and he went to Phoenix. Well, I want the coach gone. Well, now they have Frank Vogel, a new coach, right? There's no consistency in the organization. They've turned over superstars. They brought in superstars. You know, Chris Paul had to be part of the trade because of the money. You think they probably could use Chris Paul right now to play starting point guard for them? I would think so, right? It just is a very unfortunate situation. Are they cursed? Probably not. I don't really believe in those things personally, but they have had a string of bad luck in Phoenix, right? They had teams that were capable of winning championships that it just never happened. I'm thinking specifically of when Charles Barkley was there and the 7 seconds or less, right? Like those are two kind of eras of Phoenix basketball where you could point to and say, hey, they have rosters that are constructed to win championships, and it just never happened for one reason or the other, you know, whether it's Kobe violently and maliciously breaking Steve Nash's nose or, you know, however you choose to view that extremely disgusting act on a basketball court. That's how I saw it. But that being said, Kevin Durant has made all of these personal choices and professional decisions, and now he's reaping the consequences of them. That being said, I do think he should leave because it just makes the most sense. He would receive extreme backlash, and everybody would fucking hate him for it if he was like, I need to leave. I need something different. But from a strictly basketball point of view, like you should be making efforts to go play with the best players in the world at all times if your goal is to win championships. And if his goal is to win a championship, he should be making an effort to go play with Nikola Jokic, force a trade to Milwaukee, force a trade to go play with Embiid in Philly. Like that's what he should be trying to do if he really, really wants to win championships. But I don't know that is like all of the decisions he's made in the last 5 years have not led me to believe that is his ultimate goal.
I agree. You know, that's a good way to look at it objectively, right? I'm going to be a little more pessimistic because I usually am. I'm usually the pessimistic guy on this show and the Blitz. If you ever watch the Blitz, I'm very hard on players often, especially and refs too. But we're not talking about a referee tonight, so I can leave that alone. But you want to talk about what Kevin Durant deserves. You know, Brandon Jennings, I vehemently disagree. I think Kevin Durant deserves everything he got in Brooklyn. I think he deserves everything he's gotten in Phoenix. And I think he deserves everything he gets when he gets traded to like the fucking Portland Trailblazers. I don't give a fuck at this point with a guy like Kevin Durant because you went and chased the title in Golden State. And then when you went there and everybody said, oh, you went to a ready-made team to win a championship, you got all butthurt, pissed off, made 55 burners on fucking Twitter and decided to burn up a fucking keyboard, right? Then you forced your way to Brooklyn and it didn't work there. You went and I need more superstars. I need more superstars. Well, we're going to tear this roster apart. Go get Kyrie Irving. We're going to tear the roster apart. Go get James Harden. then we're going to tear the roster apart again and go get Ben Simmons and like all this nonsense that it's just been such this whole thing with Kevin Durant basically just holding teams and GMs hostage. He's an otherworldly talent. We've talked about that. Maybe the best pure scorer that's ever played the game of basketball, right? He can score from all three levels. He's long, lengthy, athletic, deceptively athletic, right? You don't think of Kevin Durant as a guy that's going to fly above the rim, but he can really make space with his body. And that's a level of athleticism in its own. But he's basically held now a second franchise hostage, and they've torn the roster apart. And then he's looking around like, why aren't we winning? Well, you're not winning because you have nobody else with you. And you traded for a guy who played like 5 games in 5 years in Washington. You knew Bradley Beal was going to be an injury risk. You knew that coming into the season. You yourself are an injury risk in any given NBA season. So this is, in my opinion, Brandon Jennings, you want to talk about what Kevin Durant deserves? I think this is what he deserves based on his actions at his last 2 stops. I won't disagree with you, Bentley, though. Like, he should continue to try to find the best place to go win championships, because what else are you doing this for? Money? He's made enough money. All NBA players of any sort of ilk have made enough money. There's a ton of money to go around in the NBA. He should be chasing championships or chasing the best place to go and win games. But you're not going to tell me that, like, he's not a big part of the problem in Phoenix right now. Because as you mentioned, the Chris Paul thing, and could he be a guy playing point guard for them? And he's a guy that is basically reaping what he's sown in his last couple of stops. He should have stayed in Golden State, man. They might have won fucking 5 out of 6. Like, just stay there. Who gives a shit if that was a ready-made roster? Go get a bunch of rings. Fill up your left hand with rings, man. Like, I never understood that whole ego thing with him. He wasn't the guy to take an OKC team to a championship. He wasn't the guy to take Brooklyn. He isn't the guy to take Phoenix to a championship. It doesn't look like, at least at this point. Stay in Golden State probably could have prolonged everybody's dynastic run there. Draymond Green might not be part of that team anymore at this point, but
maybe for the best.
Yeah, maybe. So I'm gonna spin. Ryan, did you have something you wanted to chime in with?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said, and I was thinking about the era of like the diva player that a lot of people talk about, and the mercurial, like, kind of go wherever they want player. Is Kevin Durant the example of that? Is it him and like James Harden? I'm just trying to think, like, when we think back on Durant's career or this era of the guys moving the way they do that everyone talks about. I know Harden has a lot less goodwill than Durant does, so it probably will be Harden. But I honestly, like, Durant's just as bad in my opinion. So I'm just wondering, is he the guy that we think about, like, in 10 years when we go, this was the decade of player empowerment and stuff?
I think LeBron gets off the hook because he won championships, right?
Yeah, the ultimate equalizer.
Right. He's the example of the guy that kind of started this trend of, I'm going to go be with the Heatles and then go back to Cleveland and make them trade Wiggins for Kevin Love. And then we went to LA and I forced the trade for Anthony Davis. But he's won a title everywhere he went, right? So you can't really fault that guy for that. So, yeah, I think from the perspective of, like, we always kind of try to pin these things to, like, negative when we have that perception. I think it is Harden, and it's probably Durant. Durant might end up being the number one example. Although we have fat suit James Harden, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get past that. Bentley, go ahead, man.
What about Kawhi Leonard? Kawhi did the whole thing in San Antonio where he was like, "I'm not re-signing. I'm leaving.
I have a hamstring."
Yeah, you know, I mean, and he was like, I will not play for San Antonio. You have to trade me, or else I'm going to walk, right? So then he basically forced his way to the only team that put up a viable trade package, right, at least in San Antonio's eyes, to Toronto. And then he told Toronto, appreciate it, thanks for the championship, but I'm out as well. Goes to Los Angeles, and in the middle of the night gets Paul George out of Oklahoma City after Paul George had just thrown a freaking re-signing party with Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City. So, like, I understand that the Paul George move was not Kawhi Leonard forcing his hand to move, but it was him forcing his hand to have another superstar player, freaking moved into his city.
Yeah.
Right. And he was that occurred before James Harden did his whole deal, right? And James Harden, if you remember, his first move was a trade from Oklahoma City to Houston, where he loved it. He loved Houston, right? It's the relationship soured at the end after 3 complete new rosters in 3 consecutive years. I think that Kawhi probably kicked off this whole player empowerment, player movement thing more so than did LeBron James. But that's just my opinion. That's how I
Kawhi gets off the hook because he won a title too.
No, because he hasn't won in Los Angeles yet.
Probably fair.
I think he gets off the hook. I forgot he's a player half the time. Like
maybe that's why. Yeah,
that's fair.
I mean, he's been at the Clippers for what, 15 years and played
7 games.
So yeah, I've never seen that guy play. I know he's playing this year, but I never see that guy play. Like, that's probably why he gets off the hook, right? Because if he's playing for 4 years there and then he's like, we suck, I'm leaving, then it's really going to hit him hard, right? Because he's only done it. He's only really done it one time, really, San Antonio and Toronto. The other was a free agent when
he left Toronto.
And he kind of let the Raptors know, like, I think beforehand, like, I'll consider it, but I'm probably leaving kind of thing. But yeah, like if he hung around healthy and kept trying to be traded over and over again, yeah. But I do agree, like the I'm the center of the universe, bring Paul George over here kind of thing. But KD's done the same, right? KD's been both the person going to a super team and also the person drawing people into a super team, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's definitely stars. I just think I agree that James Harden is not nearly as bad as Durant. I just think people don't like James Harden as much as they like Kevin Durant, which I don't really get because I think James Harden has been a better teammate and better like media guy than Durant has most of his career. But for some reason, people just don't like Harden's play style in his peak, and I think that really hurt him. But yeah, maybe I'm being biased there, but I think this is going to be an interesting look back on the player empowerment era, and Durant, I think, is the guy for it. So
I think part of the Harden, at least vitriol, is how he went about it.
Yeah.
When he forced his way, the fat suit James Harden will always stick out in my mind, right? Like, and I know that I'm not alone in that thought. So I think that is probably why James Harden gets more vitriol than maybe a Kevin Durant does, and especially like a Kawhi Leonard does. Fair or not, right? Fair or not, I think that's why, though. I just think, and then the way it broke down in Philly, was he lied to? Maybe, probably, right? Like, we can probably say yes. It's likely he was lied to, at least in some form or fashion, about how he was going to get taken care of. But then he just went really like toxic, spitting fucking acid like reptile from Mortal Kombat at Daryl Morey, who had spent 9, I believe, years essentially pandering to James Harden, trying to build a team around him, right? Taking his input, who to bring into Houston, got him to Philly, that sort of thing. Like, I think that might be a big part of maybe why he is, from a public perception, viewed as a little more toxic, a little more kind of damaging, or damaged goods, I should say, than a Kevin Durant, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Right, I just think that's the case.
I think there's another chapter to be written in the James Harden saga here too, because if you remember, we were talking a lot over the summer about the move or the potential move, right, of him, which inevitably turned out to happen, of him going from Philly to Los Angeles, and there was a lot of smoke around him taking that pay cut to come back for last year. And then something happened in the organization and he got super, super mad, right? And he went to China and said, Daryl Morey's a liar. I'm never going to play for a Daryl Morey organization again. Yada, yada. I think that I don't know if the story's ever going to come out. I hope that it does one day. LeBron and Harden are sitting in,
the barbershop.
Yeah, exactly. And because what I think happened, I've heard enough people, with actual NBA contacts talk about it. I think that Harden was promised a deal, and he took that pay cut, and then they reneged on the offer. So I don't necessarily hold the Harden move from Philly to Los Angeles against him until I know that there was not some sort of backroom deal that fell through, right? Like if it comes out that it was only James Harden saying those things because he wanted to move, then I absolutely will knock him for that, and it will go in the tally mark of him being the player empowerment movement guy. But if it comes out that Daryl Morey promised him a deal and he took the pay cut and then he reneged on that promise, then I think that is a knock or like a tally in the other mark, right? In the good teammate, good organization guy for James Harden, because he wanted, if you remember, he wanted to go to Philly. Like that was his, like, I don't even think that he really, really wanted to go to Brooklyn. I think that he was like, well, it's a nice stopping point. Exactly. Like it's in the city. Maybe he'll win a title with Kevin Durant, but I think his ultimate destination was to go from Houston to Philly and play with Embiid. I think that's what it was. And he just used Brooklyn to facilitate the movement of the three of those.
So. Yeah. And like I said, fair or not, right? The people who know, right, how these things kind of play out, right? Us three and others that are, basketball fans that care beyond the stat sheet, right? That understand how these things work. Certainly, I believe that something went on. I don't know to what extent and whether or not, like you said, whether we'll ever truly get the story. I don't know. We may get James's side of it. I know Daryl Morey's been pretty hush-hush, and in the Sixers, they're doing the PR thing, right? They're doing the hands off. We're just going to wipe our hands of it. We're winning basketball games, and everybody's moving on. Speaking of those Clippers, right? They're hot as fish grease, and they're up to what, 5th in the West? I believe they're 4th actually in the West right now. So they're a top 4 team in the West.
Add them to the list.
Yeah, 8-2 in their last 10. They've been playing really good basketball after getting off to a really, really, really bad start directly after the James Harden trade. But it seems that it just took them a little time to figure it out, and that happens with superstar movement. And they've been playing really good basketball. I want to circle back on. Go ahead.
I feel like there was somebody that laid out a path after that James Harden trade, saying that like there's a way that it could work. I can't remember specifically if there was someone that said that, but I feel like somebody sitting in this room laid out a path.
You remember that, Ryan?
I mean, I can take victory laps if we want to.
Whoa. Nobody's taking a victory lap. I'm just saying I feel like there was somebody that had mentioned a path forward because of these basketball savants. When you put them on the court together, just kind of figure a way for I don't.
He's just a peacock showing his feathers.
It could have been anybody.
I remember the only one on this pod taking the over on the 76ers, whether Harden played or not.
It's a long season, It's a long season.
Yeah, that's fair. It beats hurt, so it may not be great, but they look good when he's healthy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they do.
All right, Gary, what do you want to say?
I'll circle back on the Suns. I've been holding this one back here for a little bit. Assuming health, right? Assuming Bradley Beal comes back and those 3 plus Nurkic, those guys play the extent of the season, they're healthy going into the playoffs. Can the Suns win a championship and all of this whole talk about Durant kind of go away and suddenly he becomes more of a good guy in the public spotlight? Ryan, I'll go to you first.
Oh, man. I don't know if he ever will be. He's just not like super likable.
Yeah.
And I don't think he wants to be, and that's fine. Like, you don't like no requirement to be that guy. He's probably lost some money because of that. Like, but, that's fine. Whatever, right? Not a team I want to play in the playoffs. I'll say that. So it's definitely a scary team. I think he's got a good 2 years to kind of
it's a tight window.
Yeah. And Booker's going to be in his peak, and Beal's probably past his peak, but still as a third guy is probably really good as a third guy. I think it's 2 questions, right? The public eye, I don't think he improves that. Maybe his basketball legacy, yes, that's always possible, right? From how do we look at the annals of history later, right? I think he definitely could improve that. I mean, championships always do that. Even just making a run with them, with all the injuries and stuff, and making a run to the Western Conference Finals and losing to Denver, that'd be a successful season in my book, especially with how tough the West is. It just, if they're the 7 seed and get knocked out in the play-in, then
hang your hat on that.
The rancor is going to be pretty crazy, I think, in that locker room. I hope that they're insulated and they're not affected by this. But Kevin Durant seems to be affected by literally everything everybody says. So I know he's like trying to find Brandon Jennings, his home address and like, or his like get a burner account and like come after him. So I don't know. I just hope that he's learned his lesson and is insulating, because I'd like to see them, in the playoffs, Denver versus them, or some of the other West, even the Lakers versus them, I think would be fun, like those matchups. So will he improve his public perception? Probably not. Will he improve his basketball legacy? That's a possibility.
Bentley, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing to do, to win public perception, to like swing it back in your favor, right? He, for the majority of his career, has had extremely goodwill with like the NBA greater public, right? He has an incredible PR team around him. I don't know, how much he pays them, but he should probably give them a raise, because he almost never gets dragged through the mud, right? Like, he leaving Oklahoma City, if that had been almost any other superstar, right, there would have been so much vitriol thrown at them. But it was like, Oklahoma City thanks you, they show a video every single time you come back. Same thing probably would have happened to almost any superstar leaving Golden State, right? Oh, they're the issue. They're a superstar. They can't make it work with all these other superstars, yada, yada, yada. Kevin Durant didn't get that. Kevin Durant got, oh, well, he did his thing, and now it's time for him to go do it on his own. Where there's video evidence of him and freaking Draymond Green fighting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
But like, because of who Draymond Green is, he gets all of the blame for that, right? So it's almost impossible to win back the public after you've lost them, right? But I don't think he's lost them yet. If it goes poorly and he complains and we hear rumor of him like contemplating leaving, or he wants to ship, Devin, if he says he wants to ship Devin Booker out the door, then I really think it swings poorly in his direction, right? So I don't imagine that will happen. I feel like Bradley Beal will be the one on the chopping block before Devin Booker would. But like, if he does anything to really upset the apple cart in terms of roster building there, unless it's bringing somebody into the fold, right? I think that he's going to maintain status quo, of public likability. But like Ryan said, he definitely has a chance to improve his basketball legacy. He can convince people that he is a greater player down the road than he is currently, and people already consider him, true. The three of us, people that, not that we know ball, right, but people that know ball, people that are invested in the league and invested in these teams and players and stuff like that, people recognize him as one of the greatest basketball players of all time, because he truly is. But if he takes this roster, which is currently a 500 team, and carries them to, like Ryan said, the Western Conference Finals, and puts up a tough series against, I don't know, Minnesota or the Denver, whoever they face, right? Like, if he takes his team on an extended playoff run, I think that he has an opportunity to solidify himself in a lot of people's minds as one of the best basketball players of all time.
Yeah, I like the way you guys put that. It is really hard to kind of turn that Titanic of public opinion, for sure. All right, so Bentley, I'm gonna set the stage for you on this, because this was your idea. So we had our awards show a couple of weeks ago, and we had our Rookie of the Year rankings, and on Christmas Day, we had a pretty solid performance by one of those that was in the Rookie of the Year rankings. Bentley, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so that game specifically that you're talking about, Jaime Jaquez, I'm pulling up the box right now. I know he had 31 and 10, but I want to see what his actual, like, all the way through. All right, so he had 31, 10, an assist, and then 2 steals, right? And 5 rebounds. Or excuse me, 10 rebounds, 1 assist. Sorry. So Jaime Jaquez, for those who do not know, is a Mexican-born basketball player who played 3, maybe 4 years at UCLA. He played at least 3 years at UCLA, right? under Mick Cronin, who is like maybe the least Southern California basketball coach you could ever imagine. It's like
he belongs back in the Midwest. Man.
Yeah, he's like a Cincinnati guy, I think, right? He coached at Cincinnati, then went to Southern California. He coaches in a full suit and tie on the sideline, like just the epitome of everything that is not Los Angeles. He's a hard ass. He yells, like he's very demonstrative on the sideline. Whatever. But Jaime Jaquez was a stud there with Tiger Campbell when they made that Final Four run 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
When it was the True Blues, right? Like Villanova, Duke, North Carolina, and UCLA. One of the greatest Final Fours of all time. Very, very painful for me. It was Coach K's last year. They lost to North Carolina. It was very tough. But Jaime Jaquez was like the star of the show for that freaking UCLA team. And then he got drafted in the first round to Miami. And everybody who knows basketball and watches college basketball, or if you're like a draft analyst, and you also know about heat culture and the whole thing that goes on down there in South Beach, the conditioning tests, the grit, the grind, the defensive prowess. Eric Spoelstra working his way up from the video room, just being dedicated to nothing but basketball, right? They draft Jaime Jaquez in the first round, and then he said just take it off as a rookie down there in Miami. And everybody knew that him going to Miami is going to be the perfect fit, because he's a guy who's not a flashy basketball player. He plays extremely fundamental ball, and he plays so freaking hard at all times that it's just, you see the level of effort that he gives, and you see the level of effort that other guys on the court are giving, and it's demonstrably different. It's visible on a television screen. I only imagine it's even more visible being in person. I have not seen them play in person yet, obviously. But like, just knowing the way that he plays ball and the way that he fits into that Miami offense, I don't see a path where he doesn't make a run for the Rookie of the Year, right? It's going to rely on how his team finishes. It's going to rely on team success, right? Because that's kind of how these awards work. MVPs usually go to one of the best players on the best team, stuff like that, right? But if they finish, if they're a top 4 seed, if they host an NBA playoff series, and he is like the second or third best player on that court, because I think he has a chance to be the second best player on that roster behind Jimmy Butler by the time the season is over. If he has a season like that and continues on this trajectory that he started off on, to include the dominant Christmas Day game, I don't see a way that you don't have to at least give him a thought for voting him Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I would counter the point about team success mattering in Rookie of the Year with 2003. Sure. I'm verbally bitter about that year. Carmelo Anthony was the real Rookie of the Year in 2003, 03-04. However, as it stands right now, the odds are still Chet as the favorite, Vic number 2, but Jaime is number 3. Bit of a gap between Vic and Chet, and then Jaime, who's plus 2,000 currently. I just think the hype often is what it is when it comes to Rookie of the Year, more so than like an MVP award. I do think it's, unless Vic and Chet both maybe miss a substantial amount of time this season, I think it's one of those two. I don't agree that it should just be by default, though. I mean, you laid out very good points, right? Fit, what he's doing there, being the second best player on a team that was in the finals last year, right? Those are all things that should be taken into account. I just, with the Rookie of the Year, they often maybe aren't.
I may have been, sorry to cut you off, but I may have been a little overzealous when I said second best player. He could be the third best player on the team. He's not going to be the second best player. He can be the third best player. He could be better than Tyler Hero. He's not going to be better than Bam or Jimmy.
Bam, yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Jaime?
Well, I'm glad you clarified that, because that's what I was
Yeah, sorry.
I was about to be, that's a crazy take.
When Gary said it out loud, I heard it.
I just rolled with it, too. I didn't even like critique it. I just rolled with it.
Yeah,
to be fair, I don't know which one you were forgetting. I'm assuming Bam was the guy you were forgetting, but Bam is a guy that everyone forgets about, and I think Jimmy Butler's also a guy everyone forgets about. So honestly, if you had said the first best player, I would have been like, yeah, sure. because all three of those guys don't have a super flashy style, so it's like, they're easy to forget. All right, my opinions on Hawkins. I think I talked a lot in the draft when we talked a lot about the draft. I think we did like 2 shows on it, right? And my critique of the Hawkins pick, I say this every time I talk about Hawkins, was that if they were trying to trade for Dame, Hawkins was not the guy to take.
Right.
If they were trying to play someone today, Hawkins was the guy to take. So they ended up, whether they tried or not, to get Dame, which it seems like they tried. So, maybe this was like, hey, we're going to try with Hawkins as an option to trade. If it doesn't fall through, he's still a contributor kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that worked out for him, right? I think he's good. I think his potential is pretty limited. I don't think he has a high ceiling. He's almost 23, which is not old, but he played 4 years at UCLA. So he's a little older than most guys. He's like they did back in the day where they all played 4 years and they all came out like relatively seasoned. You were 23 and it was like, wow, that guy averaged 24 his first season. It's like, yeah, he's 5 years older than everybody else is nowadays. So like I expected him to be at least a contributing player. Like I don't think Miami's ever going to draft him and not contribute, because he's not going to get a lot better, right? Like I think he's going to get slightly better. He's not going to get more athletic. He's not super athletic. He like Bentley said, he's kind of a lunch pail guy. I like watching him play. It's just hard to see a 6'6" guy play the way he plays and see it translating to like significant success, just because he has limitations physically, right? Athletically and size wise, like 6'6" doing turnaround hooks like in the mid range and stuff like that usually is not a like super valuable skill for like stardom. So I don't ever see that. But yeah, I could see him as a starting player on a good team. It's possible he could be the third best player on that Heat team. I don't think they want that. I think that's not good if he ends up unless he like makes a huge leap, which I don't see how he does, just because of those limitations I talked about.
Why wouldn't they want that? They spent a first round pick on him. He's a player that they're hoping to develop.
They spent a lot of money on Tyler Hero. They probably want him to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have all these other guys, right? Like you don't want. I think how Miami is built, it's like 2 guys, right? Like clearly 2 guys like that are stars, both of them, right? The rest of the team is a supporting cast. That's all kind of like, what does the matchup tell me? And that's how we play, right? Like Hawkins is probably going to play every game, but like sometimes, the Duncan Robinson's going to need to play more minutes than he does in other games, right? Like Tyler Hero is probably your hope third guy because of the money, but like really probably like not that much better than Hawkins currently, and definitely worse defensively, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they want that, because I think that that shows the rest of the role players are not probably doing as much as they want. That's kind of my point there. Not that Hawkins is not ascending to that level. Like sure. That's the best case scenario, is he ascends to such a level that it's like he's better than these other guys. I just don't see that. And because I don't see that, I don't think they want that, because that implies the other role players did not do a good enough job. And I don't think Miami ever has success with that, right? Like they need like flat role playing across the board that they can mix and match and cause matchup issues, because they can throw 9 guys at you that all do different stuff at different levels, right? And I think that's valuable, especially in the playoffs, because they always do it in the playoffs, and it annoys everybody that plays them. Yep. and they always overplay with like Martin and now Duncan Robinson's come back and looks like a contributing player again. Like crazy.
Hear me out though. Jaime Hawkins, wonderful flow. That dude's lettuce. Top notch.
Yeah.
With the headband, dude. Yeah.
Full romaine on top.
I'm not sure how I feel about his nickname, Juan Wick.
Yeah.
I sometimes I'm like, that's funny, and then other times I'm like, God, that's awful. And I don't know which one it is.
It's funny. I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's funny.
Yeah. You may not want 6'6" Jaime Hawkins shooting hooks, but yeah, Kareem made an entire career out of it after they banned the dunk because of him in college. What a thing to be famous for, right? I gotta move band.
Zion might never have made the NBA if they made dunk in college.
Yeah,
that's he would have probably been a first round pick, just not nearly as high up, because it would have been like, man, he just never finishes at the rim. He actually has a good layup package, actually, Zion. It's just because he gets so close so easily. It's not like it's like that impressive. It's just a freak athlete.
Yeah, it's crazy. He can finish with the left or the right, so you figure he'd be able to find the center of his body. Unfortunately, he can't do that, especially when getting tattoos.
Yeah, that looked bad. Do you think that is because he's like a bigger guy and it's like harder to tattoo like a bigger guy?
It had to be. It had to be, or it's
like
fake,
he's like
one of the two.
He's like laying kind of sideways a little bit. And...
It had to be. It's either fake or it was a bad angle. That's all I can think of.
I just imagine the guy with like a ruler, like shouldering, like, all right, you're this part, like he's at a tailor. It's like he's like wraps the tape around him and he's like, all right, tattoo starts here. Hey man, do whatever you want. You got that kind of money, who cares what you look like?
Yeah, very much so.
The GM and head coach?
Nah, I don't think they care about tattoos.
Well, they care about how you physically look. I can tell you that. You know.
Weight
320 pounds.
He's looked. I know we're not talking about him. I know you were joking, but
sorry, I didn't mean to.
He's looked way less athletic this year.
Yeah,
and I think the injuries have really slowed him down.
The injuries and the donuts.
Yeah, I think eventually, like the weight has hurt him too. But I think the injuries, are really like you're seeing the impact. I mean, we play him a lot, right? Houston plays him a lot, and he's still really good. But man, just doesn't have that same explosion.
Feet. Those lower body injuries, man, they sap the fuck out of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so.
When you're carrying around probably 50 more than you should be, 40 at least more than you should be. I mean, he's a big frame guy, but like, he shouldn't be carrying 3 bills. He certainly shouldn't be carrying 320.
No.
Yep.
And he's probably lucky if he's only 320.
And he's scoring 22 points a game, so it's not like he
still can play basketball.
Yeah, he's still pretty good. If another injury gets him, like, I don't know what's going to happen with him. I'm concerned with his body.
Yeah.
Maybe Phoenix trades him for Kevin Durant. Sorry.
Straight up.
Yeah, Phoenix, Kevin Durant.
I'm trying to look at this tattoo picture and I got the jokes on social media, but like bad angle, I don't see it. I'm trying, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, dude, like. The side of the cross is like on his sternum. That's so bad. Yeah. That's so bad.
As someone who has multiple tattoos, obviously, I don't know how you fuck that up.
Oh, that's bad.
Especially like the placement of a sternum tattoo is so simple. It's like you just find the center of the chest.
Line it up with their sternum.
Yeah, like you have all the money in the world. You could literally fly any artist in the world to come to you.
Get the dudes from Miami Ink.
Like hit up Messi and be like, hey dog, who is your tattoo artist?
Yeah.
I need him to come to my house.
Right.
Because they don't go to parlors. They bring tattoo artists to their house.
To my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram has a million fucking tattoos. Just ask him. Yeah. Brandon Ingram came out of high school double sleeved up. Like I remember him being. Obviously, there were ones before him or whatever, right? But, like, he was the first one that I really, like, he got to college as an 18-year-old freshman, and I was like...
Yo, dude's been getting tattoos for 10 years.
I was like, oh, all right, man. Like, okay, cool, got it.
Yeah. Called Birdman, Jesus.
Those are all in the NBA, though. I don't think he had any tattoos when he got drafted.
Birdman?
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. He went nuts when he got to the NBA.
Yeah.
He also went nuts on horse tranquilizers when he got to the NBA too. But that's for
it can happen to anybody.
That guy had a wild career. He also had that underage girl that he thought was of age. Like he was scammed by like someone in Canada. Both of them were scammed. Oh man, just that guy had the weirdest career. He did nothing wrong.
He lived a fast life though.
Yeah, I just man, every time I like read something about that guy, it's like, wow, what a weird career.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, as is tradition here on the show, we have a Thursday night football game that probably doesn't interest everybody. But one of these two teams is in playoff contention. One of these two teams is actually, of the most surprising fashion, still in the running for the number one seed in the AFC somehow. That team being the Cleveland Browns. They play host to the Jets tonight in the Joe Flacco Bowl. For those that don't remember, Joe Flacco played quarterback for the Jets a little bit last year when they were dealing with some injuries and poor performance for Zach Wilson. Flacco threw 4 touchdowns against the Browns last year as a member of the Jets. Is he going to replicate that tonight against the Jets as the quarterback for the Browns, who appears to be the savior for the city of Cleveland? They love him in Cleveland. I saw a lot of social media, a lot of people doing some interview hits saying that they'd love to see Deshaun Watson go away. Let's trade Deshaun Watson and keep Joe Flacco. That's a pretty brash move, but Joe Flacco has played pretty well for a Browns team that has a great defense. They are 7-point favorites tonight in a game that features a line of 33.5 for the over-under. So basically, the Jets aren't going to score 2 touchdowns, I think is what Vegas is trying to say there with that line. Now, the Cleveland defense is a menace, as I said. Myles Garrett is a monster, and they've got a killer secondary. Bentley, let's go your way first. Browns -7.
Oh. 7 is so many points, man.
A lot.
Like in an NBA, NFL game, that's a lot of points. There's no Amari Cooper tonight, but Trevor Siemian is playing quarterback for the Jets. I guess I'm gonna go Browns, man. I guess I'm gonna lay the 7. I don't feel super strongly about it, but I think that's probably the correct decision.
I don't know if I would feel strong on either side of this. Ryan, do you have any strong feelings either way?
Yeah, I did. I have Amari Cooper on my fantasy team.
You're welcome.
And he's not playing. So
he is not. After setting a record, he is not playing.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Go out on top.
Right. Never come back.
Next week in the playoffs, but
he carried me into the finals to face Bentley's good friend Randy. But I will not have to play him, so that's good. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I would take the -7. I think Cleveland. I think Cleveland is the better team, especially defensively. Like the Jets might score 4 points somehow.
And they'll feel bad for him. Let it after a field goal.
Yeah, they're down like 15, and they're just like kneeling in the end zone for them. Yeah, I think Cleveland's defense has been legit for all season.
Yeah,
arguably the best defense in the league, and the Jets not known for their offensive ability, but are known for their defensive ability. So I think Cleveland gets just enough done. Probably wins by like 10 would be my guess, just because I'm not sure the Jets can score consistently.
The Jets defense is pretty good too.
Yeah, it could be 10-0.
Yeah, I'm looking at something like 16-6, something along those lines. Bunch of field goals. Maybe the Browns get a touchdown. Jerome Ford looks pretty good at times, especially when they're willing to give him high volume. He's not a home run hitter, really, but when they give him high volume and let him kind of work, he can get them a little bit of some headway on the ground. I don't think they're going to have to score a lot of points this week, as you both said. The Jets' offense is Trevor Siemian, and they just don't have anything really there. That offensive line is so bad. Myles Garrett gets hugged by 3 guys on almost every play. It's why he hasn't had a sack since week 11, but remains like the most intimidating defensive player in the league. On top of the fact that he's got a graveyard with headstones for every one of the quarterbacks he's sacked in his career. Yeah, 16-6, probably something along those lines. Flacco rejuvenated. Seems like he's really having fun when he's doing interviews. But, dude, who throws a prettier ball in the history of the game than Joe Flacco, man? Like, I look back to guys like Jeff George, who had a really tight, beautiful spiral, but Flacco throws a pretty ball.
Jay Cutler, man.
Cutler had a pretty ball. He threw a real tight spiral as well. A lot of arm arrogance with Jay Cutler as well. So, man, Flacco, one of the great looking footballs that anybody has ever thrown in NFL history. All right, well, it sounds like we're all pretty much on the same wagon. Bet the under, but also lay the points with the Browns. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of offense tonight on Thursday. So what that actually means for the betting public out there is to hammer the over and take the points with the Jets. Maybe even play a money line.
I have some more. I have one more question specifically for Ryan because I already know your thoughts on it. We talked about it last night, Gary.
Okay.
But so first off, I'll start with the fun fact about the Cleveland game here. Cleveland's defense has the 9th best odds to score a touchdown in tonight's game.
Ooh.
There are only 2 Jets players with better odds to score touchdowns, and that's Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, obviously. Yeah. So if you want to take a defense to score a touchdown, I guess it's Cleveland's.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just funny that there were only of the top 9, there were only 2 Jets, and one of those is Cleveland's defense.
That's so bad.
Ryan, I would like to give you an opportunity
Okay.
to make a college football comment and make a pick here, right?
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Gary?
My expertise is coming through here.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we talked about this game last night. So Tennessee is playing Iowa in I don't know, whatever bowl game they're playing in. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But
the Volunteer Eye Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It's something.
The Rocky Top Hawkeyes. So Iowa went under. Did they hit every under this year, Gary? I think they may have.
They just kept going lower too.
Yeah. So Tennessee is playing a true freshman at quarterback to start this game. I believe they're also without their top wide receiver for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Now the true freshman, he's been committed for like 20 months. It's his first year on campus, though. He's a former 5-star. He was the first. His name is Nico Aliamowiva or something like that. He's from Southern California. Yeah, I'm gonna leave you. He was the first big NIL deal in NCAA football. Like that was kind of his claim to fame. Also, like I said, 5-star, like one of the top recruits. I think maybe the top quarterback recruit in this year's class. Starting for an Iowa team who is bringing back basically everybody on one of the best defenses in the country. The over-under on this line, Ryan, is 35.5.
In the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, one of the great sponsorships.
Yes.
Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
Do you think there will be more or less than 35.5 points scored in this game?
35.5.
I'll add a little more context to it. The lowest number in the history of lines for college football was set this year in an Iowa game. It was 28.5.
Yeah, played at Wrigley Stadium.
College football game.
Yep. It went under.
And it went under. It did. And it wasn't close. It was like 20 points got scored. It was crazy. I think that was like a 13-7 game or something. It was so crazy.
Yeah, the only thing I know about Iowa is how good their defense is. That's all.
Defense and their punter.
When they were in the championship game for their conference, right? And
they were.
And everyone was like, "Oh, their defense has to give up 4 points for them to win." So I guess based off that, it seems like Tennessee is the favorite. I'm seeing
they are
opening like -3 something for the money line for them, which is decent.
They were 7.5. So
6 now.
Now they're 6. Yep.
I'm a big fan of Iowa. where Brock Purdy went to school nearby.
nearby.
Yes, very close by.
That's a joke about work. In case.
Yeah. That was a fun conversation to have.
We tried to get someone to guess where Brock Purdy went to school, and we were like, it's similar to Iowa, because he kept guessing Iowa.
Yeah, we were like, it's very, very close. Yeah, Ohio, Nebraska. I was like, even closer.
Literally in the same state.
Yeah, it was a good time. I would take the under. 35.5. Let's take the under, because that's the only way Iowa wins, I think, is if it stays under.
Mm-hmm. That's a good call.
If it goes over, Tennessee definitely wins. So.
Another fun fact about this Iowa team. I know we're not doing the college football show, but I apologize for kind of getting off.
We're in it now.
Base here. Yeah. So Iowa's leading receiver for the year is named Eric All. He's a tight end, which should shock nobody.
Yeah.
He has 21 catches for 299 yards on the season. His last game that he played in was October 14th.
Nice. That's my goat.
Yeah.
Well, clearly it's a balanced offense.
I guess it's something.
Everybody gets 150 yards and then you're out.
Yeah.
We bring in somebody else.
Yeah.
Iowa does a really good job of placing 3 positions in the NFL: linebacker, tight end, and offensive line.
Yep.
Yeah. They've had so many tight ends.
Oh my god. All the good ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I can think of like 5 right now off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yep. Well, yeah. All right. Take that to the bank. The under on that one.
Under Iowa, Tennessee. Under
yep.
Iowa, Tennessee.
Yep. And I've watched a total of 0 minutes of Iowa and Tennessee this year. So guaranteed to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back on the NBA. Let's get some closing thoughts as we get out the door here. Ryan, what you got for us, man, on our way out?
I don't really have much. I'm pretty sure I was thinking about something, but now I'm just so focused on this Iowa Tennessee game. I lost all thoughts I had in my. I did see a thing that was I thought was funny. Someone said, it's a guy I respect that does a lot of draft analysis in basketball. He said, if you ask the Pistons to trade Cam Whitmore straight up for Asar Thompson, would they say yes? And he was like, I think so, because they literally will take anyone that can shoot the ball at this point. And I was like, Asar might be a better contributing player currently. But I thought that was a very crazy hypothetical that I don't think Houston would say yes to. But I just think it's funny because he went, 6th, right? Asar, or 5th. Asar went 5th. And Cam went in the 20s.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're so bad shooting. They literally they need somebody. And it's like, hey, take the 5th pick. We'll give you this other guy. I thought that hypothetical was really interesting. I'm happy they broke the record. They're about to break the record for most total between 2 seasons, straight. Because I think the 76ers had it between when they were really, really bad in the trust the process era. Yeah. So, maybe Cam Whitmore is what they need.
Maybe.
Guy who can't pass the ball, but you just need him to shoot.
Just shoot the ball, baby. Shoot the ball.
I hope they win. That's all I want to say. I feel bad for Detroit. That's a great basketball city, one of the original teams. And by that, I mean Fort Wayne.
Not even the same state.
The famous Fort Wayne Pistons. I hope they win. I feel bad for them, but I do think it's a funny meme at this point.
It's crazy. Bentley, what thoughts you got for the people on our way out?
Well, the Pistons are currently winning. They're beating the Celtics
Boston,
as we speak. So,
of all teams,
it's
Cade scoring too.
Yeah, he is. It's really funny too, because I was going to talk about how good Boston has been. They went to LA and swept the 2, LA teams.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll talk about, once again, how good the Clippers have been, and how, it's just wonderful things can happen when you put basketball savants on the court together and you put one basketball savant in front of a microphone. Just wonderful things happen, and the Clippers figure out how to win games, and there's people out there that are willing to tell you how they can do it, and then immediately 2 weeks later turn around and have to eat crow because the team looks really bad to start after a big trade.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Another great episode. Dad, appreciate the comments. We will see you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. For Bentley and Ryan and the rest of us here at Backyard Sports, we are out.